12 military bases, 45,000 troops, fighter jets that cost $150 million each, aircraft carriers longer than 3 football fields, $50 billion of American taxpayer money poured into concrete, steel, and jet fuel across the Persian Gulf over the last 5 decades. And now, according to multiple diplomatic sources, Iran has turned around and told the most powerful military on earth to pack all of it up and go home. And the terrifying part is, Washington might not be in a position to say no. My name is George, and what I am about to walk you through today is something most mainstream media outlets will not touch because it forces a question that nobody in Washington wants to answer publicly. Before we go any further, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell for War Room Economics because halfway through this video, I'm going to reveal the one piece of financial leverage Iran holds that has absolutely nothing to do with missiles or drones and everything to do with the price you pay for gas, groceries, and your mortgage payment every single month. You do not want to miss that. Stay until the end. Now let us get into it. To understand why Iran believes it can make this kind of demand to the United States of America with a straight face, you first need to understand what America actually built in the Persian Gulf. Because most Americans have never been told the full picture. And when you see it laid out, you will understand why walking away from it is not just a military decision. It is a financial earthquake. The United States maintains the single most expensive network of foreign military installations any country has ever constructed in one region of the world. This is not an exaggeration. This is documented, budgeted, auditable fact, drawn directly from Congressional Research Service reports and Department of Defense spending records. In Qatar, the United States operates Al Udeid Air Base. This is not some small airstrip in the desert. This is the forward headquarters for the entire United States Central Command air operation. Every single American and coalition air mission across the Middle East is planned, coordinated, and launched from this facility. Over the last 20 years, the United States has poured billions into expanding Al Udeid, and at peak operational capacity, more than 10,000 American military personnel are stationed there alongside some of the most advanced aircraft and intelligence systems the United States possesses. In Bahrain, the United States Navy operates Naval Support Activity Bahrain, which serves as the headquarters for the United States Fifth Fleet. This is the naval force responsible for controlling approximately 2.5 million square miles of water stretching across the Persian Gulf, the Arabian Sea, the Red Sea, and parts of the Indian Ocean. The Fifth Fleet guards the Strait of Hormuz. That single fact alone makes this facility arguably the most strategically important naval base the United States operates anywhere outside of American soil. In Kuwait, Camp Arifjan functions as one of the largest army logistics and staging hubs in the region, capable of supporting the rapid deployment of ground forces and the movement of thousands of tons of military equipment. In the United Arab Emirates, Al Dhafra Air Base hosts advanced fighter aircraft, surveillance drones, and aerial refueling tankers that extend the operational reach of American air power across the entire Gulf region. Additional American military personnel, equipment, and prepositioned weapons stockpiles are spread across Oman, Jordan, and several other regional locations. When you add all of this together, the physical construction costs, the decades of operational spending, the equipment stored inside these facilities, the diplomatic agreements that make them possible, and the personnel costs of maintaining continuous rotational deployments, credible defense budget analysts estimate the total cumulative investment at somewhere between $40 and $60 billion. Some broader calculations that include long-term operational costs push that figure even higher. Every single dollar of that money was spent for 3 very specific purposes. First, to ensure the United States could project overwhelming military force anywhere in the Persian Gulf within hours. Second, to deter Iran through the constant visible presence of American combat power sitting directly on its borders. Third, to protect the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway that carries roughly 20% of the entire world's daily oil supply and without which the global economy would experience a shock unlike anything seen since the 1970s. That is the infrastructure Iran is reportedly demanding America dismantle. Not a partial drawdown, not a symbolic reduction, a fundamental restructuring of the American military presence in the Gulf that would represent the most significant voluntary strategic withdrawal since the United States pulled out of Vietnam. And before you dismiss this as impossible, before you assume this is just propaganda or negotiating noise, you need to understand the 3 sources of leverage Iran holds in this situation. Because these are not theoretical. They are operational, measurable, and they are growing stronger with every single week this crisis continues. Here is where this gets personal for you. Here is where War Room Economics does what no other channel does. We connect the military decisions being made in classified briefing rooms to the financial reality hitting your bank account. And the connection in this case is direct, measurable, and already affecting your life whether you realize it or not. The first source of leverage Iran holds is Geographic, And it is the one that should worry you the most because it connects directly to the price you paid for gas this morning. Iran physically controls the entire northern coastline of the Strait of Hormuz. Pull up a map right now and look at it. The strait is only 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. The shipping lanes that tankers actually use are even narrower, just 2 miles wide in each direction, with a 2-mile buffer zone in between. Every single day, roughly 17 to 20 million barrels of crude oil pass through that gap on tanker ships. That is approximately 20% of the entire world's daily petroleum supply, squeezed through a corridor, so narrow you could see the Iranian coastline from the deck of every tanker that passes through it. Iran does not need to win a naval battle to weaponize this geography. It does not need to sink an aircraft carrier. It does not need to defeat the Fifth Fleet. All Iran needs to do is create enough risk in that corridor to make tanker operators hesitate. And it has the tools to do exactly that. Anti-ship cruise missiles positioned along its coastline with enough range to strike any vessel in the strait. Naval mines that can be deployed rapidly by small boats and even civilian vessels. Fast attack craft designed to operate in swarm formations that overwhelm defensive systems through sheer numbers. Submarines capable of laying mines or launching torpedoes in shallow coastal waters where larger American warships are at a disadvantage. Here's what this means for your life specifically. When tension in the strait increases, maritime insurance premiums for tanker companies spike immediately. Those companies pass the cost directly to oil buyers. Oil buyers pass it to refineries. Refineries pass it to gas stations. Gas stations pass it to you. This is not speculation. This is a documented chain that economists have tracked in real time during every single period of elevated tension in the strait over the past 3 decades. Right now, crude oil is trading with a risk premium estimated between $8 and $15 per barrel purely because of this crisis. That translates to roughly 20 to 40 cents per gallon extra at the pump for American drivers. Multiply that across 140 billion gallons of gasoline consumed annually in the United States, and you are looking at an effective tax on the American economy of somewhere between $28 and $56 billion per year. That is money coming directly out of your pocket and going nowhere productive. No roads built, no schools funded, no tax cuts delivered, just pure economic friction created by a crisis that has no end date. And that brings us to the second source of Iranian leverage, the proxy network. Over the past 4 decades, Iran has built, trained, funded, and operationally integrated a network of allied military organizations spread across 5 different countries. Hezbollah in Lebanon, with an estimated arsenal of over 150,000 rockets and missiles. Militia organizations in Iraq that have conducted hundreds of attacks against American military facilities using drones and rockets. The Houthi movement in Yemen that proved it could disrupt global shipping through the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, forcing a multinational naval response that cost billions and still failed to fully stop the attacks. Additional allied groups in Syria and other locations throughout the region. This network gives Iran something that no amount of American air power can easily neutralize. The ability to impose costs on the United States across multiple fronts simultaneously without a single Iranian soldier firing a single shot. Every militia rocket that hits near an American base in Iraq creates a news headline. Every Houthi missile aimed at a commercial ship in the Red Sea spikes insurance premiums on another critical shipping lane. Every Hezbollah provocation on the Lebanese-Israeli border forces Israel to divert military resources northward. The cumulative effect is a distributed pressure campaign that stretches American military resources, drains operational budgets, and creates exactly the kind of slow-bleeding strategic exhaustion that superpowers have historically struggled to counter. Now here is the third source of leverage, and I told you at the beginning of this video that I would reveal the one piece this connects to. This is it. Pay close attention because this is what war room economics exists to explain. Iran's most powerful weapon against the United States is not a missile. It is not a drone. It is not a proxy militia. It is American public opinion. 20 years of war in Iraq and Afghanistan cost the United States an estimated $8 trillion, according to Brown University's Costs of War project. Over 7,000 American service members were killed. Tens of thousands more came home with injuries and trauma that will affect them for the rest of their lives. And at the end of it all, a majority of the American public concluded that those wars were not worth fighting. That sentiment has not gone away. It has hardened. Every credible nonpartisan poll conducted in the last 5 years shows that a clear majority of Americans oppose new long-term military commitments in the Middle East. They are tired, they are skeptical, and they vote. Iran's leadership knows this. They monitor American domestic politics with a level of sophistication that would surprise most Americans, and the reported structure of their proposal is specifically designed to exploit this reality. They are not framing their demands as a hostile ultimatum. They are framing them as a path to peace, a way to bring American troops home, a way to end another costly military commitment in a region that most Americans are exhausted with. That framing is calculated to create pressure from inside American society that reinforces the diplomatic pressure being applied from outside. It turns the American public into an unintentional ally of Iranian negotiating strategy, and that is a weapon no missile defense system on Earth can intercept. So now Washington faces what I call the impossible choice, and both options lead to pain. Now, before I walk you through the two options facing Washington, you need to understand how a proposal like this even reaches American decision makers in the first place, because the United States and Iran have not had formal diplomatic relations since 1979. There is no American embassy in Tehran. There is no Iranian ambassador sitting in Washington. When these two governments need to talk, and history proves they always eventually need to talk, they do it through intermediaries. And the back-channel network being used right now has deep documented roots. Oman has served as the single most important quiet communication link between Washington and Tehran for decades. It was Omani facilitation that helped lay the groundwork for the secret negotiations that eventually produced the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Sultan Qaboos personally carried messages between American and Iranian officials during some of the most sensitive periods of that diplomatic process. That channel did not disappear when the nuclear deal collapsed. It evolved. And multiple regional sources indicate it is active right now, carrying the kind of proposals we are discussing in this video. Switzerland plays a different but equally critical role. Since the severing of diplomatic ties, Switzerland has maintained what is called a protecting power arrangement, in which the Swiss embassy in Tehran officially represents American interests inside Iran. This means Swiss diplomats serve as the formal conduit for any official communication between the two governments. When an American citizen is detained in Iran, it is the Swiss who negotiate. When a message needs to go from the State Department to the Iranian Foreign Ministry with an official stamp on it, it travels through Bern. Qatar adds a third layer. It is a Gulf Arab state that hosts Al Udeid, one of the largest American military bases in the entire Middle East, while simultaneously maintaining a working diplomatic relationship with Tehran. That unique dual positioning makes Qatar an invaluable intermediary, capable of communicating with both sides without either side losing face. The point is this: when I tell you that proposals are reportedly circulating through diplomatic back channels, I'm not describing some vague rumor floating through social media. I'm describing a communication infrastructure that has existed for decades, that has produced real agreements in the past, and that operates with a level of seriousness and structure that most people never see, because it is specifically designed to remain invisible to public observation. And while these diplomatic conversations happen behind closed doors, the financial markets are reacting in real time with price movements that affect every single person watching this video. Defense sector stocks have surged throughout this crisis. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics have all seen significant price appreciation because Wall Street understands something the average news viewer does not. Whether this crisis ends in war or withdrawal, defense spending increases either way. Continued conflict means more ammunition, more missile interceptors, more operational costs. Withdrawal means massive spending on repositioning forces, building alternative basing arrangements in safer locations, and compensating Gulf allies through expanded weapons sales to keep them loyal after American troops leave. Meanwhile, currency markets are flashing warning signals that most people are not paying attention to. The dollar has experienced measurable pressure against a basket of major currencies driven by three converging forces: elevated energy prices that widen the trade deficit, uncertainty about long-term military spending trajectories that concern bond investors, and growing speculation among foreign central banks about whether this crisis accelerates the slow diversification away from dollar reserves that has been quietly underway for years. Gold has moved above $2,800 per ounce, reflecting exactly the kind of safe haven demand that emerges when institutional investors begin pricing in scenarios where the existing global order faces structural disruption rather than temporary turbulence. Bitcoin and other alternative assets have seen correlated inflows for similar reasons. When the established system looks unstable, capital searches for exits. None of this is abstract. The defense stock in your retirement fund is rising because of this crisis. The purchasing power of every dollar in your savings account is being shaped by these currency movements right now. The interest rate environment that determines what you pay for your car loan, your credit card balance, your mortgage, your student debt, is being influenced by bond market reactions to exactly the situation I am describing. This is what war room economics was built for. Not to give you headlines you have already seen, not to repeat talking points from cable news, but to show you the direct, measurable, undeniable connection between the decisions being made in classified briefing rooms and the financial reality you experience every single day of your life. And that brings us to the impossible choice, the two doors standing in front of American policymakers right now. And I need you to understand clearly that neither door leads somewhere comfortable. Option 1, accept some version of a negotiated withdrawal, reduce the American military footprint across the Gulf, bring troops home, end the crisis, lower oil prices, stop the bleeding. Sounds reasonable on the surface until you consider what happens the morning after. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and every other Gulf state that has built its entire national defense strategy around one foundational assumption, that America will always be there, wakes up and realizes that assumption is dead. 50 years of security guarantees evaporate, and those nations do not sit quietly and accept vulnerability, they act. Saudi Arabia has already signaled interest in nuclear technology. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman stated publicly, and on the record, that if Iran develops a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia will acquire one as well. The United Arab Emirates signed a civilian nuclear agreement with the United States in 2009 that included a voluntary commitment not to enrich uranium domestically, but commitments made under one set of strategic assumptions can be revisited when those assumptions collapse. A Persian Gulf nuclear arms race is not a fantasy scenario invented to generate fear. It is a documented concern discussed in classified briefings at the Pentagon, analyzed in published reports by the International Institute for Strategic Studies, and openly debated by non-proliferation experts who consider it one of the most dangerous plausible outcomes of American strategic withdrawal from the region. But the nuclear dimension is only part of the cascade. When America leaves a power vacuum, that vacuum does not stay empty. It gets filled, and the two nations standing ready to fill it have been positioning themselves for exactly this moment. China has already signed a 25-year strategic cooperation agreement with Iran worth an estimated $400 billion, covering energy, infrastructure, telecommunications, and military cooperation. Beijing has brokered a diplomatic normalization agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Chinese naval vessels have conducted joint exercises with Iranian and Russian warships in the Gulf of Oman. Russia, meanwhile, has deepened its military cooperation with Iran through weapons transfers, intelligence sharing, and coordinated operations in Syria that gave both nations a decade of experience working together in active combat environments. If the United States withdraws from the Gulf, China and Russia do not just gain influence, they inherit the architecture of regional security. They become the nations that Gulf states call when they feel threatened. They become the nations whose currencies get used for oil transactions. And that is where the petrodollar system, the agreement that has kept global oil sales denominated in American dollars since 1974, faces its most serious threat in half a century. If Gulf oil starts trading in yuan or in a basket of non-dollar currencies, the demand for dollars on global markets decreases. When demand for dollars decreases, the value of the dollar weakens. When the dollar weakens, everything imported into the United States gets more expensive. Your electronics, your clothing, your food, your car. The interest rate on your mortgage rises because bond markets price in higher inflation expectations. The value of your retirement savings erodes because the purchasing power of every dollar in your account diminishes. This is not a 10-year projection. These mechanisms begin operating within months of a credible shift away from dollar-denominated oil trading. Now consider option 2. Reject the proposal. Maintain the military presence. Continue the confrontation. Keep 45,000 troops deployed across 12 bases. Keep carrier strike groups rotating through the Persian Gulf at an operational cost of roughly $25 million per day per strike group. Keep absorbing proxy attacks in Iraq and Syria. Keep managing Houthi disruptions in the Red Sea. Keep oil prices elevated with that $8 to $15 per barrel risk premium baked in. And keep watching the calendar tick toward an election cycle where every dollar spent on military operations in the Middle East becomes a campaign attack. Add about wasted taxpayer money and endless wars. Meanwhile, every carrier strike group stationed in the Persian Gulf is a carrier strike group not available in the Western Pacific, where China is building military installations on artificial islands, conducting increasingly aggressive naval maneuvers around Taiwan, and testing the boundaries of American commitment to Indo-Pacific security. The Pentagon's own strategic assessments have identified China as the primary long-term military challenge facing the United States. Every month of sustained operations in the Gulf pulls resources, attention, and readiness away from that challenge. This is the trap. Both doors lead to pain. Walking away costs American dominance in the Gulf and potentially destabilizes the global financial system that has kept the dollar supreme for 50 years. Staying costs billions per month in direct military spending, keeps oil prices inflated, stretches the force across two major theaters simultaneously, and erodes public support with every news cycle. And this is exactly why I built War Room Economics. Because this decision, the one being debated right now in back channels running through Oman, through European capitals, through quiet diplomatic meetings that will never appear on any official schedule, this decision will determine the trajectory of global power, energy markets, and your personal financial future for the next decade. Now, I need you to do two things before you leave this video. First, drop a comment below and tell me which option you think Washington should take. Accept a negotiated drawdown and risk the cascade, or maintain the presence and absorb the costs. There is no easy answer. Both sides have legitimate strategic arguments. And the comments section on this channel consistently produces some of the most intelligent strategic discussion happening anywhere online. Your perspective makes it sharper. Add it. Second, share this video right now with one person who needs to understand what is actually happening behind the headlines they are reading. Text it, post it, send it. Because 10 seconds of your time could fundamentally change how someone understands the most consequential geopolitical moment of this decade. This is War Room Economics. My name is George. I will see you in the next one.